Hello, yoganauts. Happy, if you can call it happy, full moon to you all. It's a full moon in sidereal Taurus and tropical Gemini. Full moons are always the apex of the lunar cycle. It's easy to think of the lunar cycle as a plant or a flower, and to think of the new moon as the planting stage, the full moon as the flowering stage, and the waning of the moon, the next 2 weeks, as the disseminating stage or the ending stage of the plant or the flower as it returns to the earth. So whatever we were being visited by at that new moon still essentially has control over the cycle until the next new moon. And the lunar cycle is new moon to new moon. The full moon being the center, the apex, the flowering of the solar idea that was planted at the new moon. So the sun had all the strength at the very beginning, and the moon was a supplicant coming to the sun, begging for a boon for humanity, for humankind, as Dane Rudyard likes to put it. And then this solar idea, whatever it was an answer to the moon's request, the moon's prayer. And a full moon night like tonight is the full flower of whatever that lunar idea was. And if you recall, at our last meeting here, we were talking about shedding light on the conflict of the new moon that had everything to do with this retrograde Mars that we're going to be dealing with in one way or another for quite some time. This, I think it's mid-January before Mars goes direct again, and then I think the retrograde shadow is possibly even quite a bit longer than that. So this is our foreseeable future, is this Mars retrograde energy, and it's very strong conflict, warlike tendency, difficulty, inertia, kind of malaise, hard to move. And if you recall, the last time when we were discussing the new moon, we talked about conflicts that arise out of this retrograde Mars. Now, the full moon itself is directly on, it's an exact conjunction with this retrograde Mars. So it's clear to see that this energy, this God of War energy, is with us for some time. But the benefit of the full moon is that we're able to get some clarity on what was actually happening for us during the November 23rd new moon. And we can see the whole picture a little bit better now, and the part that we played in it. Before, our projections were very strong. It was very difficult for us to see that we were doing anything to cause some of the conflicts that we were having. And it's hard when we look at larger problems that are occurring in society to see how we are culpable in them. But it's very important, especially living in America right now, that we look at the whole picture and that we try very hard to suss out our role in it. In the blog at dogmoonyoga.wordpress.com, I wrote a lot about the authority of the tree being the mystery of the seed. And as the seed grows, it becomes informed by the larger idea that created it. And so it is with us. As we get older, we sometimes see the conditioning that we accepted without question. And it can be very, very difficult to own our culpability in that and learn to walk in a new direction, especially when, everything in our culture points toward acquisition and hoarding and theft and basic unethical behavior being the norm now. These things are not normal, though. This is the Kali Yuga, and there are many more roots than branches in our personal tree of growth. There is a longer history here of people overcoming their oppressors and people overcoming systems of oppression. And the pinnacle of that, the full moon, the flower of that, is the United States. And that's why all of this is at our door right now, right? Beyond projection, what is hidden? What's the one piece of information that would make it all make sense? I'm going to do a Moon Lodge spread tonight. We did several other spreads before, but this is the one that helps rip away the veil of self-deception. It is an inward tree for centering, and the tree is my metaphor right now for everything branching out in these fractal directions and us having to try with our very limited consciousness to perceive how things have gotten so wildly out of control, right? So this is a mirror of the unconscious and will help us to see ourselves more clearly in reality. Let's hope. Help us to see the current moment in a more realistic way. And we call upon the Matu Videya. We obey the Great Mother Goddess in all things. And we tell her, thank you for loving me. Thank you for my good health. Thank you for my friends. Thank you for my home. Thank you for my heart. Thank you for my spirit. Thank you for this wisdom that you bring to us today. So the first card of the Moon Lodge spread is the spiritual nature, the talents and abilities that we possess in this current moment that we may not be aware of. And that card is patience. Ant. Now, ant is a creature that can strip an entire forest bare by sheer numbers, coordination, intensity, and a shared purpose. I really feel that way when I think about the seed and the tree. All of us want freedom. And freedom simply means not being captured, right? So when we're patient and we all move with the mind of patience together, we have more than we think we do. We are more than we think we are. Real power lies in each and every one of us making the choices for real freedom. And sometimes that can be a little scary, but knowing that we all come from the same seed, that humankind is one species, one mind, and we can all work together a lot better than we're doing right now. It may take some patience, though. So our spiritual nature, our talents and abilities that we may not be seeing lie in our patience, our numbers, and our ability to do this work. We're here for a reason as a group. The new growth card, or the actual seed card, is the South card in the Moon Lodge spread. This is the East card, just to give you a little bit more direction. That's the spirit direction. And then here's the south card, Weasel. This is one of my personal medicine totems, and I don't want to miss the fact that Ant is 32 and Weasel is 33. This looks a little bit like a black-footed ferret or an ermine. And the story goes that when the colonizers came to this country, Weasel, because of his stealth, was sent into the enemy camp to give a true account of who these people were and what they wanted, right? And very tearfully, came back to the people who were here first and said, this is not going to go well. This can symbolize the type of energy of being able to move quickly in a very canny way. But the strength of this card, the new growth, the seed, is actually being able to not choose a side other than the side of truth, right? Stealth means playing your cards kind of close to your chest, not revealing an opinion or having a set way of looking at a situation, but looking for the opportunities to move without being noticed, to move without being seen. And in one way or another, this represents the true feelings of the masses. For this is like a mass reading, right? A collective unconscious. And what we'd like to be able to do is to move unseen. We'd like to have our freedom without being noticed. And being stealthy with your joy, with your future, with your plans, is a powerful inception. It's a seed of, secrecy, but also knowing that privacy is important in our freedom as well, and that we may not exactly agree with the systems we inhabit, but it's not the right time yet to be able to project that outward, express it openly, without knowing exactly how and when is going to be the best way to do it. Stealth as a new growth card means, trying to find your collective, your group of people who are feeling the same as you, kind of on the down low, not necessarily bringing it out into the public. But this stealth card always has truth at its basis. Seeing clearly and being able to observe without being seen is another great seed for this full moon. As we watch everything come into fruition, as we watch the lunar cycle descend and learn this solar intention for all of us in the next 2 weeks, it's probably best to stay off the social media, keep the opinions to yourself until we figure out exactly how it's all going to suss out, right? The projections and the bigger picture of the new moon are still the overarching energy. And until we really understand what's going on, presumably the illumination of this full moon will tell us, we need to nurture our privacy and love of truth and freedom with stealth. Now the West card is the dream within in the Moon Lodge spread. It reveals the real purpose of the lunar cycle, the entire 28-day lunar cycle. And in this case, the West card is Butterfly. This is the card of transformation, not in the sense of temperance or transmutation, but in the sense of actually breaking out of the chrysalis. And one of the things that I spoke about in the blog as well is this Pluto-Lilith opposition. And Pluto is in Capricorn right now in the tropical chart, and in Cancer in the tropical chart is this black moon Lilith, this mathematical point that predicts the moon's furthest point away from the earth. So that means the mind is occluded, and like something new is coming out of our encounters with our wild self. Our domesticated self and our wild self kind of went into the cocoon, and what's emerging is a new creature. What's emerging as consciousness comes into contact with matter is a new creature. Every day is a new evolution, a new meeting of spirit and matter, and something new is produced every single time. But the chrysalis is breaking, and in this lunar cycle, the real purpose or the dream within is to transform, to go from being a creature that crawls on the ground and eats leaves to one that flies and sips nectar, right? There's a huge transmutation there, and in between those two things, there is a caterpillar soup that is probably painful, disgusting, and very, very difficult to live with. But with patience and privacy, the transformation that turns a caterpillar into a butterfly can be very beautiful. Although it is perilous, dangerous, you know, it does take time, it does take the right circumstances, but it can be done. And I think with what we've been seeing since 2012 and the emergence of all the dark energies that need to be transformed, that need to be brought into the light and seen so that they can be dealt with, it's been like the chrysalis. It's breaking now. Jupiter at the 29th degree of Pisces, it's the end of the chrysalis. That's not the end of the challenges for the butterfly though, right? You got to dry those wings. You got to get up airborne. You got to make sure that those wings are fully formed and not mutated in some way that makes you, so not out of the woods, but maybe out of the chrysalis. And that was the point of all the difficulty. We have to keep that in mind. There's a point to all this, right? Now, the North card of this spread represents the inner wisdom that's available. And it's the wisdom within card, the thing that is the key to the cycle, to understanding the self-deception that made the veil purposeful, right? Why did we have a veil to begin with? Well, there was something within us that we weren't yet able to see, and the thing that we weren't yet able to see was what we were building. And it's really interesting to me. Weasel is 33 and Beaver is 22. Industrious small creature uses its face to build its home, right? And if you've ever seen one, I saw one a couple of years ago at its dam in Glacier, and it was big. Like, that was a 2.5 foot tall creature up on its hind legs. It builds a home in the water and on the land. And to be a mammal that is a part of two worlds in that way and embodies the primeval urge of the fish that looked at the land and said, could I live up there? The progenitor of all of us. So it's like we're building with flesh and bone a new way of being in the world, a new way of going from a creature that crawls on the ground and eats leaves to one that flies in the air and sips nectar is being built in us. Something is being shown to us through us. And it is intelligent, and it is alive, and it has a purpose. The authority of the tree is the mystery of the seed. This is what it looks like when something is born from you, through you, into the world. And it's weird and wonderful and wild and mysterious, but it is flesh and bone and water and wood and fire and water and building. Moment by moment, building. And we have to remember that there's a value in it. There's a reason for it. And moving forward in this way is the project of intelligence on planet Earth. Every single beaver, muskrat, ant, ferret, butterfly has been put on notice that the project of intelligence will go forward. It's being built flesh and bone through us. And it is what's happening here. Now the middle card is the integration card for all of this and gives us our final, well, almost final, because we like to look at the bottom card of the deck, indication of what we can see beyond this veil. What is there beyond our ability to know and understand right now? If the beaver is what is within, and the patience is our spiritual nature, our talent and ability that we don't recognize we have, the new growth is our stealth, and our real purpose is the transformation, then our personal unconscious and our integration will come through action. Perfect, actually. Antelope is not a deer. I found out this year they are, I'm going to forget exactly what they are, but they are antelope, and they are very fast creatures. They're more of a goat, I think, than a deer. They have enormous eyes and the ability to move super quickly. And that's why this card represents action. Mars also represents action. Mars retrograde also represents action. But even stronger than we're used to. In Vedic astrology, in the sidereal zodiac, retrograde planets are seen as more powerful than they are in direct movement. That Mars is going back over something, some action that we have already visited, and is coming forward again over this point. So it like saws away at it 3 times, right? This action, whatever it may be, is an integration point for this whole transformation that's being built through us in private with our patients. It culminates and integrates in an act. And it may be an act of intelligence, right? One that reminds us of the fact that we are not our roles in this culture. We are not our roles in our families. We are not the things that we do out in the world. We are who we are in our most private selves. We are who we are that we build with our flesh and bone and endocrine systems and digestive systems. We are who we are in our patience, and we are always changing. So the action of being in constant change, the movement that never stops here, the change that's always going on, is the integration point, I would say, of this whole evolutionary process, this whole real purpose, the larger and the smaller. So in the microcosm and in the macrocosm, this transformation, this intelligence being built out of the human body, out of the encounter of spirit and matter. And then if we want to look at this smaller lunar cycle, how the actual crisis that is consciousness is always moving forward. It is the one happening, right? There really is nothing else going on here but us becoming more and more aware. And that awareness can be very good for us. It can be joyous. It's been difficult. There's no two ways about it. And this last little while has been a little bit more difficult than we're used to. But this is the last full moon, the last revelation of this cycle of 2022. And then we move into a new one in 2023. Let's hope that the actions we take in the next 2 weeks and the transformation that we've had in private in our patient building is meaningful and powerful for each one of us in its own way, and then for all of us collectively. The card that underlies this entire process is number 20. This is Mouse. Mouse is scrutiny. Mouse says, I will touch everything with my whiskers in order to know it. It has a very, very tangible experience of the world, and it scrutinizes everything. It's really interesting because I was thinking a lot about my inner critic this morning and today, and the voices that tell me I'm not good enough to make the choices and actions that I want to make, or I'm not something enough, or I won't have the opportunities that I want, or I won't be able to build in the way that I want. And just listening to those voices, those words, those thoughts, without participating with them, without getting involved with them in any way, has been really helpful for me in my process of growth. And if there's one action that might be a really good one to always undertake, is to not believe your thoughts. They are not the truth. What is the truth is beyond our ability to actually think about or comprehend. And we need to kind of keep that in mind. It's a humbling thought. It's a scrutinizing thought. It's a small, whiskered creature that can help us see the world a little bit more humbly, with a little bit more humility. Always a danger when Mars is incredibly strong as it is today. May this reach you in the way that you need to hear it, and mind your heart.